Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Emerging Cures Substack, where we examine CAR treatments, CAR-T for T cells and CAR-NK for natural killer cells. These treatments are revolutionizing cancer care. They take the elements of the human body's own immune system and modify them to identify and attack cancer cells, and they're achieving great success. A CAR T primarily in blood cancers, but also now in solid tumors, and NK in solid tumors. Both these treatments have advantages and disadvantages as outlined in the post, but the two are emerging. Researchers are figuring out ways to combine the two so the advantages are emphasized and the negatives and the side effects are negated. And the post then closes with a brief look at a very different cancer treatment, the use of bacteria in fighting and destroying cancer. I encourage you to read it if you are interested in knowing about progress being made in a wide variety of cancers.
Today, we're going to talk about something that is, it's completely changing the game in oncology. We're talking about reprogramming our own bodies to cure cancer. And it all boils down to one really powerful question. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if your own body could be trained to cure your cancer? It honestly sounds like it's pulled straight from a sci-fi movie, right? But for more and more patients, this is becoming their reality. And it's all thanks to this incredible new class of treatments called cellular immunotherapies. Okay, so to really get how this solution works, we first have to wrap our heads around the problem. Why do we need to train our immune system in the first place? I mean, isn't it already supposed to protect us? And the answer is, yeah, absolutely. Your body has this amazing built-in security force. You've got your T cells, which are like these highly trained assassins that go after specific threats. And then you have your natural killer cells, or NK cells, who are more like the guards on patrol, just instinctively taking out any cell that looks damaged or suspicious. But here's the twist. Cancer is smart. It's a master of disguise. It figures out ways to hide from this immune system, basically throwing on an invisibility cloak. And just like that, it's completely hidden from the very T cells and NK cells that are meant to destroy it. And solving that is what these new therapies are all about. So how do you fight an enemy you can't see? Well, you give your soldiers a brand new set of eyes. And that brings us to this incredible breakthrough called CAR T therapy. For patients like Emily Walsh, this was literally a last resort. Her leukemia just kept coming back, even after chemo and a stem cell transplant. So the idea of re-engineering her own cells, it sounded totally impossible. But it was also her only shot. So what's the tech here? It's called a Chimeric Antigen Receptor, or CAR for short. And the best way to think about it is like a super advanced GPS for your immune cells. It's a protein made in a lab that gets attached to a patient's T cells, and its whole job is to give them one new, very specific target to lock onto, the cancer cell. And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Once these CAR T cells are put back into the patient, they're not just some drug that your body processes and gets rid of. Nope, they become a living medicine. They start multiplying, creating this massive army of cancer hunters that can stick around for years, constantly on patrol. And the results? They're just stunning. For patients like Emily, people who had run out of all other options, we're seeing complete remission rates between 70 and 90% for certain blood cancers. That science fiction became her reality. But, and this is a big but, this revolutionary treatment isn't some magic bullet. It is incredibly complex, it's very expensive, and it has its own major challenges. You know, the process itself shows you just how complicated this is. This isn't a pill you just go pick up. It all starts with collecting a patient's own T cells. Then, those cells get shipped off to a highly specialized lab. They get engineered with that CAR gene, they're grown into an army of hundreds of millions, and then they're shipped back to the hospital to be infused into the patient. This whole thing is personalized for every single person, and it can take anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months. Now, while CAR T has been a total game changer for blood cancers like leukemia, it has really struggled against some of the biggest killers out there. We're talking about solid tumors like breast, lung, and colon cancer. They're just a much, much tougher nut to crack. So why is that? Well, a solid tumor is basically a fortress. For starters, it builds a physical wall around itself that blocks the CAR T cells from even getting inside. And if they do manage to get in, the environment inside the tumor is so toxic, it just wears them out. Plus, the targets on these cancer cells can look a lot like targets on healthy cells, which makes avoiding friendly fire a huge risk. But scientists, of course, are not just sitting around. They are already hard at work engineering the next generation of these living medicines, designing them to be smarter, safer, and way more effective against these fortresses. Which brings researchers to some pretty important questions. Like, how do we get around this whole complicated, personalized manufacturing thing? And how in the world do we break down the walls of that solid tumor fortress? And one of the most exciting answers involves using a totally different kind of soldier, those natural killer cells we talked about earlier. By arming them with the same CAR GPS, we get a whole new kind of therapy, CAR NK. And when you put CAR-NA and CAR T side by side, you can really see the potential here. CAR T cells have to be made from the patient's own cells, but CAR-NA cells, they can be sourced from a universal donor. That means you can make them in huge batches ahead of time and store them, creating what's essentially an off-the-shelf therapy. It's faster, it could be a whole lot cheaper, and it seems to have a much lower risk of severe side effects. This whole evolution from CAR T to CAR NK, it's just one piece of a much, much bigger story. We are seriously stepping into a brand new frontier of medicine. The future really is about making these living drugs smarter. AI is being used to find better cancer targets. Scientists are working on ways to create CAR T cells directly inside the body, kind of like how an mRNA vaccine works. And they're even developing logic-gated CARs. These are smart cells that need to see 2 or 3 different signals before they attack, which makes sure they only kill the cancer and leave healthy tissue alone. You know, this quote from Dr. Carl June, one of the pioneers in this field, it just puts everything into perfect perspective. What we're seeing right now, all these amazing, life-saving results, this is just the beginning. This is the Wright brothers' first flight. We've just proven that this crazy idea can actually fly. Which leaves us with this final, really exciting thought. If this is just the beginning, if this is the Kitty Hawk moment, what on earth is the jet age of fighting cancer going to look like? And just how many more lives is it going to change?
That wraps up this week's Emerging Cures Substack video. I encourage you to read the entire post if you're interested in knowing about emerging treatments that are radically transforming survival rates in previously untreatable cancers, for instance, some forms of brain cancer. If you're dealing with a life-threatening disease and want to know the latest in how medical science is addressing that disease, feel free to contact me for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. And thank you.